Drake's latest album, playlist, More Life, hit Spotify on March 18th, and boy do we have a lot of thoughts. Describing this as a playlist as to avoid the confines of identifying as an album, Drake has assembled a star-studded team of producers and features on this cleverly curated collection of songs. Early standout Fake Love was released as a single in October, but I predict that Passion Fruit will be the inescapable song on airwaves this summer. The collection of genres featured on More Life include, but are not limited to, dancehall, Afrobeat, trap, grime, and obviously rap. But where More Life differs from previous Drake efforts are the sheer amount of airtime his collaborators are given. So much that at times they feel like space fillers, performing the acts that Drake himself cannot appropriate. What's new about this album is the self-reflective quality that Views lacked, and it is often proven to be a much-needed refresher. The kaleidoscope of sounds with which Drake engages does much to distract from his sometimes clumsy lyricism, a fact clearly not unmissed by Drake himself, as he allows other artists to step forward and deliver entire tracks. The bottom line? Drake is a strong collaborator, but a weak soloist, and his awareness of this, and clever use, made More Life a welcome departure from his usual work, but still not a game changer in this season of contemporary hip-hop and R&B, a genre which, as we have repeatedly asserted, is making some of the most interesting and engaging music right now.
I feel like so much of this album is deliberately created to stop me from having a strong critical opinion, because every issue I have with it is easily countered by the fact that this album exists. It's too long for me to really get a sense of what the flow is, but that's the point. It's supposed to be an hour and 20-minute long playlist. It's defined as a playlist, so I can't criticize it as an album, and that's the point. It's no longer operating as an album. So I'm kind of at a loss with this. I wasn't a big fan of Drake on Views. I found Views started out very promising, but I quickly grew really bored with it. And I just find Drake as a lyricist to be incredibly boring to listen to. I don't think he's really got anything all that interesting to say. And for the parts where Drake really heavily features on this album, those same concerns are still there. I think production-wise, there's more variety. I think musically, there's more interesting things happening here. But all the things that I haven't liked about Drake up until this point are still issues here when he does feature prominently. When he takes a backward step and lets other people come to the forefront, that kind of negates a lot of those issues, but it still feels like he's not really collaborating with people. He's really just setting up an opportunity for people to fill in for the weaker aspects of him as an artist.
So I definitely think this is a more tactical album than what he released in the past. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, it's tactical in the sense that it gives him some respite. There's chances for him not to have to be the center of attention, and yet he makes an incredibly long album. I don't see the point of that.
So let's talk about Drake in the lexicon of other hip-hop artists that are currently releasing music. You and I are big fans of Lupe Fiasco, Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar, Frank Ocean, Childish Gambino. Where is Drake? Because one of the things that I appreciated about this album is on the track Can't Have Everything, he has that voicemail from his mother. And what I thought was interesting about it, other than an obvious pandering to the audience's emotions, is that she talks about the negativity present in his music and how she doesn't like it. And then she throws in that Michelle Obama quote, when they go low, we go high. But it felt like a half apology. That's important. Half apology for Drake's often tiring and ineffective use of these sort of aggressive, hyper-masculine personas on some of his previous songs, which I don't think suits him character-wise or stylistically. So if he removes himself from that, which I think he steadily has been, where does that put him? What is his place in contemporary hip-hop? Because I agree that he's not a particularly strong lyricist, and I don't think he's an innovator. I think he produces good top 40 hits, danceable top 40 hits. There is a place for that, of course. But why? I think that's a big question. Why and how is he contributing to this genre?
I mean, that sample I find to be very cynical.
Yeah.
And again, it's...
Maybe she just reminded me of my mom, or my grandma. He did it right. It's pandering, and it worked. It worked on me.
I'm not the target here. As much as I love so much rap and hip-hop, I think there's just something about Drake which just doesn't gel with me. me. He doesn't say anything. I never get the feeling that he's genuinely trying to communicate anything. I find that it's always through the veil of, if not one character, then a couple of key characters, and they're always so broadly defined that I just kind of, it doesn't do anything for me. I look at it and I immediately disconnect. Let's have a look at this issue of collaboration, because you mentioned that there are these touchstones throughout the album, and I think this kind of comes into one of the things I don't think works with this album. So he has the track with Kanye West in Glow, right?
Yes.
This track for me really cemented the things that didn't work for me, because
even Kanye couldn't save Drake for you. That's saying something.
There's nothing on this track that feels like Kanye to me. It feels like Kanye going through sort of the Drake character, the Drake persona, and working inside that framework. So I don't see that as being a particularly useful collaboration. At the same time, the track itself I found, very weak, especially compared to a couple of others on the album, which, there are definitely strong parts here. But this is an example of using someone and it wasn't greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that energy is all across this album.
I was disappointed by the Kanye track, but I don't think that Kanye has been at his best for years. And that's not an excuse. Because now I get this weird thing where listening to new Kanye, it just makes me kind of sad. I don't know, that signals as something seriously wrong to me, that I would not be excited by the inclusion of Kanye on something. And you too, you felt it too.
I am genuinely so torn with this album because I really want to like it. And I can hear that for me, it's a definite improvement on Views. Views really ground me down. And I feel like with More Life, I definitely see more worth in the music that Drake's putting out. I think that he's doing a lot of interesting things. He's playing with genre quite well. And I think his choice of collaborations is really interesting. There's a lot of positives here. But when it comes to the overall album, there are too many walls that stop me really getting into the feel of what's going on here and appreciating it as a playlist, as an album, as, a package, I guess.
I think you do get a sort of schizophrenic, genre-bent mashup on this playlist, which worked in some places, didn't work in others. And as you said, he uses Skepta and these other artists as his space fillers. I personally think it was tactfully done. Didn't necessarily work in all occasions, but I don't know, it showed more forethought than I was expecting.
I have so much white noise about this album that I just can't settle into a really well-defined opinion on it. I think I could listen to this album for the next 6 months and still not be sure of where I stand with it. I think some people are going to find that a rewarding aspect of it, but I think that if you're not already on the Drake train, this is probably not the best way to ease yourself into the experience of listening to his music. I don't think it's music for me.
Yeah.
And which isn't to say that I don't like it, but I think that it's quite deliberately created without any of the things that I am interested in mind, which is cool. But the problem is that most of the music that I will deliberately seek out that operates like that, I will still find really interesting because other people's worldviews are really interesting to me, which is why I'm given so much pause here, because it's not resonating with me in any way on that level. Part of that is things that I don't like about Drake as an artist, and part of it I think is just a deficiency in my own language to get at the heart of what's going on here, or to maybe just even appreciate it on a superficial level. Maybe I'm looking too hard at it, but it was a really difficult album for me to listen to, and I'm still figuring out exactly what my thoughts on it are.